Super Rugby round 10 is almost upon us. We've got two games on the Friday. A good New Zealand derby, so we've got the Blues up against the Highlanders, and then a good, kind of top of the conference Australian and South African match between the Waratahs and the Lions. So both these games are going to be kind of interesting for different reasons. So for the first one, the Blues and the Highlanders, it's two teams at the bottom of the New Zealand conference, but in very different positions. So you look at the Blues, they've got a record of 2 wins, 5 losses. And it's not a pretty situation. It's very much a continuation of kind of years gone by, and perhaps even a step back. There's been a couple of bonus points against New Zealand opposition, but still no wins in that department, and really poor performance at home against the Sharks. Makes the Blue season kind of, it's not in a good place. For the Highlanders, they've got a great home record. They're 4 from 4. They've beaten all comers, whether they be from New Zealand or from South Africa, Australia, but haven't been able to win away. They've only had the 2 chances, and it was against New Zealand teams. But still searching for that first away win. So the Blues are back at home after a decent performance over the Sunwolves, but decent is kind of the best you can give them for that performance. It was a bonus point win, but just barely. To be fair, they had a few kind of new faces in the lineup due to injuries, so at least that was a few guys getting blooded, if nothing else. And for the Highlanders, they're just looking to emulate what the Chiefs did. So the Chiefs went into Eden Park and got a win. The Highlanders will be looking for exactly the same. In terms of the lineups, the Blues injury tolls are getting pretty bad. Nanai's out, Collins is out, Jordan Trainer's out, and the list is apparently 18 guys all up who could be selected who are not available for this week. So it's pretty bad. 2 of their young first fives are having to both start. So Gatland gets the call at 10, and Perifeta, who can also play fullback, is at fullback. Papali'i is at 6, which is kind of good because he is one of the kind of prospect players who actually looks like he could go on and do something good. So, it's good to see him getting a start. For the Highlanders, there's a little bit of squad rotation going on, and the coaches have justified it by saying that the All Blacks camps have meant some of their players have been out of their weekly routine, off with the All Blacks. This kind of week building up. So Aaron Smith doesn't start this game. They're starting Kane Hamilton, and the question is, are they just taking the Blues lightly by not playing Aaron Smith? And the coaches are obviously saying, no, of course we're not doing that. It's just we think Hamilton's the best fit for this game, and All Blacks camps and whatnot. But if this was the Crusaders, Aaron Smith will be playing. So I have no doubt about that. Everything that they say is all well and good, but it's kind of meaningless, as that if it was a tougher game, they'd be playing their best players, no matter what. I should mention for the Blues, Rieko Ioane is back on the wing, so we'll see how he goes there, because I'm not sure that you could say his trips to the midfield have been an outstanding success yet, but that could also be largely down to the Blues' performances overall. For the Blues, every game at this point is a must-win, but they haven't beaten a New Zealand team in over a season, so I wouldn't be getting my hopes up for that one. They've also got the travel factor to contend with coming back from Japan. I don't know how much influence that'll be, but it's just another thing that they've got to deal with in combination with all the injuries. For the Highlanders, the New Zealand conference is really competitive, and I said that they're kind of second bottom in the New Zealand conference, but they've still got a 4-win, 2-loss record, and they just have played a game pretty much less than everybody else. This is pretty much the halfway point for most teams this season. I think the Lions and perhaps the Stormers are already at halfway for them. The Highlanders are probably a week behind. But for most teams, this is round about where their halfway point hits in. So, it's just the Highlanders have got that game in hand on everybody, and they need to win it. So it's probably more pressure on them if anything else. And yeah, the Blues are wounded, so with all those injuries, it's probably a good time to be facing them. But hey, for the Blues, it wasn't really working with all the top guns playing, so maybe some youth who have got that drive to fight for a place is actually going to do something kind of out of the ordinary. We will see. I got my dad his birthday gift for this year, and it is a pretty nice ticket to this game. So we'll see if that was a blessing or a curse for him, because he may not be happy if the Blues go and get a hiding, and then that was his gift. We'll see. Either way, he'll have a nice seat to see the game. In the next game, the Waratahs take on the Lions. So this is the battle of the two top dogs. So the top team from the Aussie Conference meets the top team from South African Conference. So it's kind of got a bit of extra interest about it. Questions about where the Aussie Conference is at, like the last team that was the top of the Aussie Conference, the Rebels, when they took on the top team from the New Zealand Conference, which was the Hurricanes, got kind of dealt to. So this will be another indicator of where the Aussie Conference is at. Both teams have got 5 wins, so it should be an interesting matchup. The Tars have decided to beef up for this one, so they've moved Hannigan from the locks to number 6, with Staniforth moving into the second row, and he's a pretty big guy. And on the bench, they've gone for a 6-2 split, so only the 2 backs. So they must think that something is going to be needed up in the forwards to face the Lions. So we'll see how that kind of pays off. For the Lions, Warren Whiteley was supposed to be available for the tour. He's gone on tour, but apparently he aggravated his knee just before they left, so he's not available for this game. There's still no Ross Cronje. He hasn't joined the tour. But Jens van Rensburg's on the bench, which is a good thing. But yeah, I think in terms of pressure, the Aussie Conference is a fair bit tighter, so there's definitely pressure on the Australians, or on the Waratahs, to keep ahead in that Australian Conference by holding at home. For them, if they can go and beat one of last year's finalists, that will definitely give them a bit more kind of credibility in their push for a Super Rugby title, because it's all well and good to be top dog in the Aussie Conference, but if the teams overall are still behind, then it doesn't mean as much. But if they go and beat last year's finalists, then I think you have to give them a bit more kind of credit into where they're at. For the Lions, they've got a good buffer in the South African Conference. They're ahead by quite a lot, as my son tries to break into the room. But the other teams have all toured. All the other South African teams have all been on tour. Jaguares are on their tour at the moment. But if they can't pick up wins on tour, then the other teams will definitely catch them up while they're away. So they've got Tars and then the Reds, and then Canes and the Highlanders. So 2 games in New Zealand, 2 games in Australia first. I don't know which one's the easiest one of the lot. I think they'll definitely be targeting the Tars and the Reds as ones that they should be getting wins over, because I would have thought, without looking at the stats, that the South African teams have better runs than against the New Zealand teams. But hey, the Sharks went in, didn't get any wins in Australia, but still got a win in New Zealand, and pushed the Hurricanes right till the end. So you never know. They should be interesting games. Kind of big implications for these, in that Blues season is kind of effectively over as it is. But yeah, if they lose this one, it's kind of another nail in the coffin. If the Highlanders win, then it just keeps them up in New Zealand Conference. Whereas if they lose, then they start to fall behind that leading pack. And for these two teams, it's just about kind of consolidating their spot at the top of their respective conferences. So we will see how they go. Let me know your guys' thoughts on the upcoming games for Friday. And yeah, I'll talk to you again another time. See ya.